Old habits.
Mother retired at 76.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will reconvene the Budget Committee meeting for the 2019-2020 budget. Before we go into our first presentation, which is technology service, I just want to check and see if any of the members of the committee have any opening comments to make or,
Yeah, first I wouldn't start till Gary's here.
oh yeah, we can't start till Gary's here, that makes sense. So we'll just chat with each other then.
So
Yeah.
when Gary does get back, I had a good conversation with the sheriff this morning on the phone, and he has raised this before, and I went back and I looked, and I spoke with Gary a little while ago, so maybe he'll get to it, but the question is, he's obviously aware and been instructed to increase his FTE count, obviously, but what he also pointed out is that in a certain period of time, there's been a number of FTE added in other departments that were general fund funded. So therefore, I asked the sheriff to send me the departments because I couldn't find it weeks ago or a couple weeks ago when he raised this. And so I've asked Gary to look into it. And so we have different numbers. And I don't know if there was just an error, but that's something that I'd like to make sure that in preparation for our deliberations this afternoon that we've got, that on hand. That's all I have, but I'll share that. But Gary already heard that, but maybe if you heard it from the budget committee that, we want to ideally get an accurate count. I thought maybe that might be part of the budget actuals, and that staff produced that we received on Saturday morning, but I noticed that the FTE count wasn't in there, but I didn't ask for it, so no worries.
Hey, I see Commissioner Schrader and Mr. Schmidt and Commissioner Fisher coming in now.
Commissioner Savas, in your binder, section 2, there's a county workforce summary that does have all of the departments, and it goes back to 2016-17. So there's 4 years worth of FTE.
Right, thank you. And I saw that. I'll go back and look at that section again, but it didn't come up the count that the sheriff raised. And
Yeah, I'm not sure how they're doing their analysis. This is our official point-in-time FTE count that
Right,
the
and you're
budget
referring
office
to tab
does.
what now?
Tab 2,
Tab 2.
page 5,
Page
is a
5.
county workforce summary.
Right. Gary, what we were talking about was the FTE count issue, and so, I promised the sheriff I'd look into this and raise this morning, so I just thought that maybe between now and then. So Jennifer, do you think the number's accurate?
Oh,
in
yes.
here?
Yes.
Okay, and then Gary mentioned that the count he thought was 123 FTE added in the last 5 years, which doesn't go back that far, but I just want to clarify, I think from this morning's discussion and the previous one, the sheriff did indicate that he felt they were general fund funded FTE. So I don't know if we can parse that out. What was general fund versus grant, like H3S, for example?
Right.
Or DTD, because DTD some of those FTE might actually be road funded?
Most likely, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Commissioner Bernard?
just wanted to mention that first we started and I said, no, we can't do this till Gary comes. And then Paul started chatting, so.
It's all right.
I tell people I caught hell for starting the meeting without.
That's why I brought everyone up to speed.
Right,
So.
right. We
but I-
didn't really start without you, but.
What I wanted to say is that I think the PERS rule changes that occurred in Salem are gonna have a major impact on retirements at Clackamas County. Whether the court turns, says this was legal, doesn't matter. It's gonna be an incentive for people to retire. The sheriff, with his number of people available for retirement, I mean, and we have people like directors who are, could retire at any time, but it is definitely gonna stimulate early retirement. And so I think we have to be careful when we talk about a freeze for next year. Maybe we should talk about reallocation of positions rather than calling it a freeze.
Interesting thought.
Yeah,
Thank you
had
so
a
much.
similar phenomenon 15 years ago when
Yeah.
there was a change in PERS. I was meeting with clients who were PARS retirees, and the decision to retire this year versus next year was $400 to $500 a month difference. So they retire now, and it's going to be in a succession planning opportunity. I would
Welcome, by the way. Good to see you come in.
Yeah.
Speaking as somebody who retired 23 years ago, I will tell you the day they give you free money is the day to go.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will begin with our first presentation this morning from Technology Service. It's looks like the Dave and Dave show we've got this morning, right? Woohoo. And gentlemen, we have 1 hour scheduled for your presentation, and it would be about 30 minutes of presentation from you, and then we'll allow 30 minutes for questions and answers from the Budget Committee. So thank you very much, and with that, you're good to go.
You're not required to do the full hour.
Right, you're not. Yes, you're not.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Technology's doing great. Yeah, there you go.
Another set of eyes out here. And make sure our phones are turned off.
And have a little fun.
Darn right.
We'll get going. Well, good morning. We're back.
Yay!
Yay. We're the Daves. I'm Dave Cummings, the Chief Information Officer here in the county. Next to me is Mr. David DeVore. He's my Chief Technology Officer and Budget Manager. And between the two of us, we're going to present our technology services budget for this next year. Okay, first slide up here. Yes, this is our building. It is for sale. It's being foreclosed on. It used to be a two-story building, but it's pretty much sunk into the ground with a daylight basement.
Oh, seriously?
A few months ago, the sewer pipes broke and it filled up, so now we're just a one-story building again. And true story, that actually happened. Built in 1966. I have this building and I have another building, which was the old tax assessment building, and we're maintaining what we have in those two buildings right now. Make sure I hit the right button here, Dave. There we go. Hey, master's degree in electrical engineering, I can work the little clicker. It was all worthwhile. Our department have a budget of about 21 million this year, and we do all kinds of technology throughout the county. We're specifically, as best as we can be, centralized in technology in the county, although always seems to be a trend of people trying to decentralize a little bit in technology, but we maintain as much as we can that control. And we support the PCs across the county, the servers, the CCTV cameras, fiber, GIS, web, just about everything you can think about in technology. That's what my department does. We have about 56 people. I had 10% of my staff retired or retiring this year. So yes, that's correct. People are starting to retire. For us, it's tough because once they start retiring, you start losing a lot of that old knowledge out of the department. So a lot of money we spent on training and a lot of mentoring we've done just goes out the door. And we're going to see, I agree with Commissioner Bernard, that we're going to see more and more of that this next year. So it's going to make it pretty tough on us. Department mission and our core values and goals always been the same. The mission of our department is to provide high quality, innovative, and cost-effective technology to the public, county staff, and county commissioners so that you can provide and receive county services. Some of our key services include technology, policy, and strategy, PCs and peripheral support. We have a very large call center over in our #1 data center, of which we do have 3 data centers here in the county, one across the street, one right here in this building, another one down at Brooks. And we also maintain 5 different phone switches in the county. We do applications development and support. Very, very important these days is security, governance, and what we call alarms, which is our alert system that we would like to implement here in the county. We have a wide fiber infrastructure, as you know, and part of that's the CBX fiber that runs throughout the county and throughout all our campuses. Full infrastructure support and telecom networking and wiring. Some of our core values, we absolutely and totally have county spirit. We promote that, we live by it. That's the only way to go. It's teamwork and it's spirit to provide a great service and a great product for you, the county employees and the citizens. Customer service is our priority. Diversity is one of our #1 goals. I'd say in proportion to other departments in the county, our department is more diverse with different flavors of people. Providing a great service, and only A work is good, as acceptable to us. We don't care for B, C, or D work, it's just A work. And it's a very diverse workforce within our department. We're very high on staff development, mentoring and training our staff, provide better products and making people do the best that they can do. Budget transparency, you can always look at our budget allocation and see where you're at with what we're spending and what we're doing. We wanted to more and more understand our customers' business, how they operate and what they do, and we feel if we can do that, we can offer a better service to them. And we try to be very lean in how we do our staff resources. So if we have openings and retirements, we try to take a look at what we're doing, where we're going, what the budget is going to be forecast, and kind of reallocate staffing to best support, keep our level of support up throughout the county.
Yeah, departmental budget request. Our budget is made up of actual 3 funds. 747, which is our primary technology services budget, which covers most of the department. We have Fund 746, which is what we call electronic services, or our telecom department, which covers phones and a lot of the wiring for the county. And then our CBX budget, which is Fund 271, and that's our fiber. The 3 of those together make up all of our budget. Part of what we'll talk about at this point is a little bit discussed later, but there's, if you look at the numbers for our 17, 18, 18, 19, and 19, 20, it's a little confusing sometimes because we actually have a fairly flat budget, but it's hard to determine that based on these numbers here. We have not a very large department. We only have 56 people, but we cover a large variety of services, which also means we have a large variety of revenue sources. We're general funded, we're direct billed, we're indirect billed, we're allocated, we're indirect allocated. All those mix together. And over the last few years of working in concert with budget, we've been working to tune that budget to make it more efficient, easier to read, and a lot easier to track. One of the things we've done is over the last few years, we developed a new allocation model that in concert again with a budget that allows departments to really manage their own budgets. They know ahead of time what they're going to be paying for. They can make decisions based on a business model. They know what it's going to cost them. So they actually know ahead of time before we even release it to budget what their allocation is going to be. That only covers part of it. The other parts though, general fund and indirect, are based on usage. Part of what is good about where we're moving is we have a relative flat budget to services. It doesn't really increase or decrease unless our service levels decrease or increase. But one thing we have noticed over time was we were having problems with building reserves. I hate to use that term, but reserves for capital replacement. We don't have enough money in any given year to maybe replace a certain product, like let's say network or services, or servers or storage. So instead of coming back to the budget committee every year and saying, oh, we want to go buy this X, can we have another $1.5 million? Well, where is that going to come from? We have now gone to a model where we project out over a given lifespan of a product how much it's going to take to build a reserve, so at the end of that lifespan, we're ready to pay for it in our budget. We're trying to keep a flat budget. Good news about that is it means, yes, we have a budget that's trackable and we can predict. The bad news is based on the replacement process, it means we got a lot of expenditures one year and a lot of savings next year, and expenditure next year, and it gets very difficult sometimes to see, are you really flat in your budget? So we're working with budget on ways to better show that information. A good example is this year, we were hoping to replace our network. We've been saving money for 3 years to get ready for a major replacement because our network's getting antiquated and no longer meets governance requirements for CGIS, HIPAA, and so forth. Well, some of the rules have changed, the industry's not matured enough, and other things have happened that we've had to postpone that. So now we're rolling these large amounts of capital from year to year. That kind of caused this fluctuation in our budget, so we have to kind of monitor that and keep up with that. Even so, if you look at the 18-19 budget, it shows a $24 million budget. Reality, our adopted budget at this point last year was only $20,331,000. We had an amendment of $3+ million to roll those unused numbers over from the prior year so we could start spending them the next year. They're already paid for, we just have to reflect them in our budget so we have authority to spend for them. We expect this next year, with the $21 million that we show in the budget, same thing's gonna happen again. We have a network we have to replace, and then CBX also has large numbers they roll because they don't know from when we do our budget what our next big projects are gonna be until they come down to us. A good example is this last year, we turned our budget in October to November. Well, that's half the year we got left to still do work. So when CBX turns in our budget, we still end up finding out from like the Multnomah County ESD, they just put out a bid, we won that bid. Well, we have to put in our budget authority to go do that project. So again, we get these up and downs. So we're working with budget in ways that we can make these a little bit more open and easier to read as far as what our true numbers are versus what our project and replacement numbers are, if that makes sense. So that being said, our actual budget from last year, our adopted budget this year, only went up 3.86% for the entire department. So we're really trying to keep that flat and really tied to services via our MFR, which we're in the process of redoing, to show where we need to increase those numbers, if that makes sense.
Budget reductions for this year, when we started out, when we were asked to achieve a 2 or 5% general fund target, we cut $176,000. That was 3.87%. And that came out of us cutting some interns and for the GIS and GIS apps, some of the GIS overflights that we were going to do. We are going to do reduction in training, and some of it was offset by reallocation of savings. We also took an initial $90,000 hit because we're usually the very first ones to budget, and we have to budget out to the departments so they know what their allocation is. And when our allocation back to us came back in, there was a $90,000 delta there, so we had to kind of take care of that too.
A couple of key points, as we mentioned earlier, in our current budget, you'll see where we have a large change between our adopted and amended budget from year to year. We try to compare adopted to adopted and then add in the amended as necessary. We do have multiple capital reserves. At any given time, they probably are anywhere from between 1 and 3 million total, depending upon what's up for replacement on that schedule. And we do project out 5 to 8 years. We actually have a process where we know what the replacement requirements are for the county and what the growth requirements are for the county, and we factor those in so we are ready in the budget to replace that equipment when it's time. We have some added CBX projects this last year that added to the budget, and we also have a few multi-year projects that were carried over that were not done. A lot of our projects take more than 1 year to complete. Key metrics, though, for 18-19 and 19-20, our adopted budget actually only went up from last year, like I mentioned, 3.86%. One thing that the departments are really key on is what our allocation rates are. That's what they look at for what we're gonna be billing them. We have a MFR metric to say under 5% at any given time. We met that this year. Where all our metrics are all our allocation rates are under 5%. The one the departments care about the most is the PC rate. That's the one that makes up a majority of their allocation. It only went up 1.79% this year. A lot of that's due to trying to stretch out the equipment, trying to get better deals on our equipment, and really keep the prices for stuff down. Our FTE was flat. We went from 55.5 to 56. And we're trying really hard to be proactive, where we're looking at ways, knowing that the budget's going to get tight for a variety of reasons over the next years, how can we start now being prepared to keep our service levels flat or go up as it may be, and keep our budget flat? And we're looking at things such as working with vendors to have multi-year maintenances contracts due now for a cheaper rate, so we don't have to budget for them later. That'll give us 3 to 5 years of not having to pay for a particular maintenance contract. We're looking at buying training credits up front at a cheaper rate, so we can get and use that training dollars later and reduce those dollars. So we're looking any way we can for the next few years to really go lean as we can and keep the service levels where they need to be. And we're working with finance. They've been great to work with us on options on how to do that better and how to do a better job of showing our capital reserves and how they impact the budget.
Some important events for this year that we've gone through, working with PGA, because we're a great team and they're a great team. We work very well together. We did an expansion of Drupal utilizing, including the intranet redesign, which came out very, very well. Westworks system asset mapping utility and expansion of desktop development. Our CBX connection to the PITOC, and you might say, well, why is that a big deal? Everybody buys internet from somebody, whether you're individual at your home or you're a telecom or whatever, and it all comes in from back east, and it comes into a central point, which is the PITOC building in Portland. So as it comes in and it's bought and resold and bought again, it becomes more and more expensive. So it's very important for telecoms to get into the PITOC to be able to buy that internet service. We have a connection into the PITOC here at the county, and we do have telecoms that are buying that connection from us. So that's very important to us, and that was very exciting to have that happen. We were awarded, and David alluded to that a minute ago, Multnomah County Educational Service District project. And what that is they actually fiber all the schools together. They get money, reimbursement from the federal government to do that. We bid on it. They pay us to build it. They actually give us the fiber, and then we charge them to use it and other people to connect into. So it's really exciting source of revenue for us to bring money back into the county so we can stimulate growth and jobs in the county, and also a great asset for the kids and schools and for continued education, which is extremely important. So we're very excited about that. We had some cellular upgrades going on this year, some mobile enhancement. We completed the TS1 data center redesign, which was a little building you saw on our first slide. We were having major problems with our HVAC system and some of our battery backup and storage systems over there. And everything that we did over there can be moved to a new location. So we got that done this year. We had a regional, very big project of multi-agency 911 CAD system in this Tri-County area, Washington, Multnomah County, Clackamas County, and Clark County for the MAGIC system, which is was putting us in compliance with CGIS regulations, and that was a big project that we had with CCOM, and it went very, very well. Implementation of PeopleSoft Staff Manager self-service functionality was done this year, and introduction to new GIS portal for supporting map services. Things to look for in fiscal year 1920, we're all excited about. Potential relocation of the TS facilities to the Silver Oaks building. We're really excited about that. We can get out of our 2 buildings that we're currently in. That's slated with the new courthouse master plan to be demolition. I think our TS1 building might be a parking lot, and the TS2 building, which is the old assessor's building, part of that's going to come off for a road, and there'll be other county offices that'll be moving into there. But the major thing is that we'll be one location for all of our staff, and it's very, very important for that to be done correctly so that we can provide the high levels of services that we continue to do here in the county. CBX business plan and pilot projects. I'm very optimistic about getting a final draft of the CBX business plan by the end of this month so that we can come forward to the board to let you know what we're doing and where we're going, where we'd like to go with that fiber project. And the Multnomah County ESD project will be finished up this year. There are lots of other projects on the books that will be coming to the county board to take a look at and get your permission to do. But it's pretty amazing. I was just meeting with staff yesterday, and a year ago we had a list of 3 projects that we were working on, and there was concern about us running out of work. And now the list of projects goes on for a page and a half. So we have a lot of stuff that's happening with that whole project, and a lot of the telecoms wanting to partner with us and do things. So it's pretty exciting for us. We have increased hybrid cloud and Office 365 utilization, looking more at going out to the cloud where it makes sense, and doing that type of development of integrated document management system, be working on that, new development model using containerization for web and desktop. The technical design assistance with the new courthouse coming in, OSU and Tri-Cities building, and complete a Oregon State 20-year project to remap tax lots through ORMAP, through our GIS guys. And I'm excited to say, working with the great guys from the MFR, and we've been kind of redoing ours to get better measurable milestones within that, that we're going to be completing a technology services 3-year plan that's going to coincide with that. That'll help us manage and budget our resources and staffing as we go into more lean economic times, and that's very, very important for us.
Building on what Dave was mentioning, being the tech geeks we're actually very excited and are true believers in MFR. So much so we're in the process of wrapping up a rebuild of our MFR plan that we did 3 years ago, and we're coming up with a lot of new metrics that actually will work for us a lot better. And we're going to be tying that into our strategic plan for technology services, to our budget, and to our SLAs, so they'll support each other and back each other up as far as what services we deliver and how we measure the success of those services. For this year, some of the measures that we're looking at for this year, some of them include what we would call more survey-type based questions. We have ones like the percent of developed applications that meet customer requirements, or departments that feel TS call center is good as excellent. We have an online survey we request departments to fill out, and currently we're running right at or above what we're hoping for results. We want to update these again for next year to try to get even better information. One of the key systems that we look at is making sure that we have uptime and critical issues resolved within a certain period of time. The urgent systems issues resolved within 4 hours. We've been maintaining that around 98. We want to even try to get that higher. But to us, we want to make sure we can respond 24/7 by 365 as fast as we can when necessary for key systems. We mentioned earlier the PC cost. That's one of our allocated metrics. Right now, we're still staying under our goal of 5%. And for next year, we're looking at 1.79%, which is critical for the department's budgets. Number of days where there's no service interruptions. That's one of those ones you always shoot for 100%. So it's kind of one of those ones you don't look real cool because it's always flat, but that's what we want. We want a flat 100%, always up, never down, which is almost impossible. But it does help us justify costs for what we call COOP, which is redundant systems, interoperability, making sure why we spend money for 2 of a lot of things. So when one goes down, users never know something went down. Just had that occur this morning, in fact. One thing went down and something else came up. So we're using those as measures to make sure that it justifies why we're spending money in redundancy where it makes sense. Another one is a good one is an annual estimated savings for public institutions utilizing CBX. We're looking at right now for this next year about $1.5 million in savings to county agencies, including Clackamas County. And that's another reason why we want to keep building upon these metrics, because they show the justification for those expenditures. We will be developing new additional metrics this next year that will be even more in tune with where we want to go with the MFR plan. Some of the changes in support of that, like we mentioned, is we're working on a new MFR plan that will tie in with our SLA and with our budget. We're expanding the role of what we have a group called Software Evaluation Group. Any new development, purchase, or request in the county for software goes to this group. It evaluates whether or not we already have a solution. Do we really need to build one? Do we buy one? What's the most effective way to resolve that user's request? And we're now going to be integrating along with purchasing on best ways to provide solutions that meet enterprise goals for the county. So we don't have a lot of replicated software out there that could be solved by one product. As Dave mentioned, we're creating a detailed business plan for CBX to help define its future roles and services. We're working on our 3 to 5 year roadmap that will, for TS, that will integrate with MFR. We're also reclassifying one of our retirements. We've always wanted a business analyst position that can go out and work more closely with the departments using basically their speak for what they're doing in their departments and translating the technology needs better for us. That's going to help us. We're hoping to align our service requirements with departmental requirements better. And that's it's a new classification for us, but it's using a position we already have. We're just going to retask that position. And then again, we're going to be using Drupal, which is our content management system for the web, more and more in partnership with PGA over the next few years to actually allow PGA and TS to deliver even better services to the departments for use of the web, both from the application and content level.
One of the things that we would like in our performance results and changes is to, and we talked about it with Jeremy and Marv in our MFR refresh, was to get a little more clout for the CIO to enforce standards and policies for technology across the county, so we won't have duplication of services or people stepping on each other's toes with the different types of technology that people want to implement in the county. So that's been very, very important for us. Potential emerging issues, potential relocation of TS to the Silver Oaks building. I know I keep harping on that, but that's a major move to move the data centers and consolidate that all together, because we're really the heartbeat of the county when it comes to technology operations. So that's going to be a very important move, and it's got to be done well and planned out very well. Resource reduction, staffing and funding. We know that we're going to go into lean times. I've been in this business, gosh, what am I? I'm at like 140 now, and I've been doing this since I was 12. Long time, so I've seen the cycles come and go. I know how to anticipate. I know how to budget for it. I know how to manage for it. That's just what I do. That's what you pay me for. So we see that coming up, people retiring and funding getting a lot tighter. And how do we do that as a team, as a county, and under direction of our new county administrator that has that vision in mind? We're going to do that, and we're going to make that happen. We're going to be part of the team. Lack of enforcement of technology policies. We need to really tighten up on that, enforce those policies, and have more strategic planning as we go forward. We need for better interdepartmental communications. I think all the departments need to communicate a little bit better with us. We're probably the worst at not doing that, and we need to do that a lot better. And we want to communicate and learn everybody's businesses as much as we can, so that we can provide a better service so that they can do their job. Retirements and staff succession planning. We continuously take a look at our retirements and try to retool those positions to where they most benefit the county, and we have enough staff on board that can pick up those pieces and that job and keep running with it. Impact of increasing cloud services and integration. More and more things are going into the cloud. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes they don't. It's just what's the best plan for what you're doing in your organization. More and more demand for services anywhere at any time, 24 hours a day. It's tough for us to do that and keep all the bad guys out, all the hackers and the spams and everything else, and still allow people to be able to do their jobs. And that's really tough for us. Future role of CBX per recommendations of the CBX business plan. We're approaching that. Hope to get some really good direction from the board and support from the board to do what's best for the county and keep those jobs and keep those people within our county working and going. I know about 70% of the employees in the county go outside the county for jobs, and we want to keep those people in the county and keep them working here and grow our county. And that's our goal. Data and system security, adherence to governance and requirements, as as I've already discussed, is very important for us. And centralization versus decentralization is starting to come around again. When I came into the county 20 years ago, that was a big thing, and they were centralizing technology. And it's worked very well. And now more and more departments are starting to talk about doing their own technology. They're wanting our technology classifications. Technology. It just makes sense to try to keep as much of that centralized as you can, and but make it work. So I know I've talked a lot here. So if you have any questions?
I think we have a number of questions, Dave and Dave.
Absolutely.
So, so let's, before we start the questions, though, thank you for that little tango in there. So I do want to make sure that everyone has their phones on silence or stun, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that would be a good thing. So yeah, so thank you for that. So we have Commissioner Bernard, then Commissioner Savas, Commissioner Schrader, Mr. Caton, Mr. Feely, and Ms. Lee. So we'll start with Commissioner Bernard.
First, when I look at the county and the services we provide, I think of you as an enterprise, something that opens a lot of opportunities, for example, CBX, but also the phone switches. And I don't know what kind of marketing you do with that, but the CBX certainly can be a great utility in the future. I know that Sandy has a goal of getting all the way to the mountain, and I assume that's in partnership with you guys, right?
Absolutely.
But I just see a ton of opportunity for you guys to be an enterprise for the county. The other thing, so do you do anything with the phone switches? I mean, are you providing use or access?
Okay. I don't personally do anything with the phone switches, but I do have staff that manage and maintain the phone switches. We have the same phone switches that a phone company would have, provide the same services that a phone company would do. More and more counties are starting to do that and control all their own phone switches.
Do we market that?
We haven't up to this point because that would be marketing a service, and I don't have the direction to do that yet.
Okay.
That would take some planning on how we would support that and what we would do. But we could do that with the phone switches, things like CCTV cameras and stuff that are pretty easy to support is something we could do too also.
I'd love, when we get past the CBX, decide on that. I'd love to look at what we could do for phone services.
Good.
We don't have stockholders that don't have to get a certain return on their investment. It makes sense that if we can save schools and cities money, we ought to do what we can. And you've done a great job with cities. I mean, with school districts and stuff like that. The other thing, the overflight, you said you weren't going to budget for that, but isn't that what the assessor's doing?
We do that in conjunction with the assessor.
Yeah. And so it's just being funded in a different way. You're still getting the GIS information.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just happening in the assessor's office.
What's happening at the assessor's office, and it's probably happening, maybe David, a little slower.
Well, we have different flights throughout the year depending upon what resolution they want and where they want to go. And what we're doing this year is consolidating some of those flights to try to get basically more bang for a buck, so we don't have to fly as much. And try to save a little bit of dollars. And we do that with not just the assessor, but with engineering and other groups as well.
All right, thank you.
I'd also like to mention, just to finish up with some of the things you were talking about, that a lot of people don't realize it. And we had a gentleman in from the USGS grants that actually approves the grants, and he was amazed that we have no debt with what we've built so far with the CBX dark fiber backbone. He says everybody else in the world has some debt, and we don't have any debt. And we'd like to continue that and continue the growth of that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I thought I'd start, thanks for everything you do. It's always nice to know
Absolutely.
that I can, every morning, look at my email and it works.
It works.
99.9% of the time, according to the measurement. But I thought I'd really start with the really heavy duty stuff that really bothers me. So on page, well, not page 3, but on your PowerPoint, one of the slides where it says important events in FY 18-19. Fourth bullet. I've got to start out with a little bit of humor. So the truth is out now. We actually have a wine cellar, and you want to upgrade it?
Page 3.
Yeah, page 3 of your the handout. Fourth bullet on the bottom slide.
Cellar upgrade and
I don't want to spend a whole lot of time making a
Yeah.
joke, but you did say cellular when you introduced it, but I just wanted to say the truth is out about the wine cellar, so.
Oh,
repurposing the basement, that was.
Other enterprise services as required, I guess.
What I really,
Check is great until it isn't, right? Yeah.
okay, I got you.
what I really did want to say is that,
We do have a wine cellar, but
I thought so.
And whine about everything.
that's where they come and whine at us, yes.
I want to just get back, appreciate David's, DeVore's explanation about pre-purchasing and credits and so forth. When it comes to technology, or the recession or economics, in some cases, we were talking about that in other departments and other aspects, that a little bit of a risk is that if, let's say, price of construction falls because we're in a recession, if we had the timing of trying to take advantage of those markets. So on the technology side, I found, and I don't know what the trend is, so this is my question, what is the trend in your line of work as far as equipment, the capital side? Are things getting cheaper as technology gets more and more advanced? Like memory. Memory used to be really expensive. Now it's cheaper than it's ever been. Had we bought memory 15 years ago, we probably would have made a huge mistake. I'm exaggerating, but you get my point. So what is the trend in this kind of hardware that we use, at the scale we use it? Is it going up significantly, or is it actually coming down, or?
If I really had a good handle on that, I'd be rich. It's all over the board because it kind of depends on who's manufacturing what when they stop. Memory goes expensive and cheap again, CPUs, but like right now, trying to get an i5 processor, you can't because they stopped making them for a while. And so it depends. On average, you get more power for less dollars. But what they keep doing then is start throwing in other stuff that you want. And it's like buying a new car. They just keep throwing in satellite and everything else. And a lot of times you don't have options. The other trend we're seeing is what they call subscription cost, which means the hardware is actually getting fairly cheap. It's if you want it to do anything, you just keep paying. And they don't charge you maintenance anymore. They charge you with subscription, which means as soon as you stop, it stops working. And it's a risk you take, especially in cloud services. Cloud is great because you don't pay as much upfront like a lease. But soon as you want it to do anything, you have to keep up with that cost, and that cost just keeps going up, and you don't have a lot of say in the matter. They do the upgrades when they want to do the upgrades. They do the changes when they want to. Part of our role is trying to balance that, and we try to find those things that we can have a little bit of control over, especially if you buy things in more larger numbers, like the training. If we waited a few years and the market got really bad, could we probably get a little bit cheaper dollars, negotiate? Maybe. But would the availability be there at that time? So we try to look at, could we buy maybe 100 credit hours now and pay a 200 credit hour rate? And I'll be honest with you, it's hit and miss. On average, I would say things are cheaper. It's just that now they want more. A good example is security. Everything we do, the security costs just keep going up, and they charge you whatever they want to, really to enforce that.
Along that line, you mentioned storage. Yeah, storage prices are coming down, but we find that our storage requirements are going way up. More and more people are wanting to store more data. They're wanting more as we go along. So it's we have to anticipate what that growth's going to be. A few years back, we started limiting, cutting off the amount of emails and storage people could have on that, because that was just really eating us up on storage. It's just more and more people wanting more and more. Even though prices are going down on some stuff, we have to buy more devices for storage and to meet that demand.
Storage is a good example.
My last question is on your key performance measures chart, where you have all the MFR related stuff. And just want to express this as kind of a message to the administrator and my colleagues as well, but ask you and point this out. I'm always nervous about putting percentages to some degree. Sometimes they're appropriate, but putting percentages into performance measures because it really doesn't really talk about what the base is, or it's very, and an example of that is the fourth line down under what it says efficiency, and that's the cost per PC. The 17-18 shows a cost of PC of $2,111, and it's 3.3%. And the price, your target for 1920 is 2,185, but the percentage is 1.7. So in essence, that's almost a demonstration that percentages can be misleading or misunderstood. And I just want to advocate for, is the percentage the best measure, or should it be like in your very first one, should it be events? You know, should it be less than one event per year or 2 events per year versus a percentage of the time that we're down on days?
Absolutely. And great question at the perfect time, because that's what we just went through and are going through with the MFR process again, because we agreed. We ended up having a lot of different metrics that we really couldn't measure, and the percentages were always, what does the percentage really mean? So I agree with you 100%, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, these are a little bit from our last MFR plan. Our new ones actually have quite a bit less percentages and
Yes.
more, how would Marv put it, telling the story. And we're really trying to figure out how to do that better.
Right.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, on page 5, I just kind of earmarked a couple of things. So lack of enforceable technology policies, but what, give me an example, what would that be? Of a policy that, okay, it's in place, but no way we can track it, no way we can keep the herd together? I mean, what?
We need a standardization of technology policy that's enforced throughout the county for procurement, for the types of technology that we buy. I know a lot of times, for example, people have specific needs for a system that's going to meet whatever needs they have, and then they'll go out and look for a system, and then come to find out another department has the same type of system that will meet those requirements too. And then another third department will have a same type of system bought from a different vendor that do the same things. And maybe if we just all got together and standardized on what we're going to buy and the technology we're going to buy and what we really want to do with that technology, that the technology we'll find out will meet everybody's needs without reinventing the wheel several times. Dave, do you have some examples of technology policies that?
Just been hard to.
No, I think you covered it pretty well. Some of what we get into, though, is making sure we can meet governance requirements. And we're actually held responsible to make sure we meet those, but we don't always have the ability to enforce those at the department level to make sure if they're putting data out in the open. Well, that could be violation of a HIPAA requirement, but how do we enforce that to make sure? I mean, there's quite a different aspects to that, along with what Mr. Cummings mentioned.
So
Yeah,
that-
23 years ago, I recommended against buying PeopleSoft.
I was going to ask about
And
that too.
where are we at
because-
today? Yeah, it was very
I remember that.
expensive. It was just a Y2K thing to make our system Y2K compliant. The company that wrote our Moore system, it was $80,000, but they were booked at the time, by the time I got on board. So we went out for a new system. We bought a Cadillac. We'll do a lot of different things and just kind of shoved it in and made it work. I know there were not as many systems out at the time, but there was other stuff out at the time. But I didn't have the clout to enforce those policies. I need a little more clout. Guys, I've been around forever. You guys have trusted me for 23 years. Dave and I have a vast amount of knowledge and education. We know what we're talking about. We just need a little more clout to kind of enforce the things that we need to do
Yeah.
here in the county.
I saw you did some work with PeopleSoft just this past, I think it was 2018-19, and I wanted to ask, I thought that was an obsolete system that we are moving away from. At least that was my,
It is a system that continues to work. It's cumbersome to work with. It wasn't implemented correctly. I think there's a lot of new stuff out there that might work a little bit better. Does it still work? It still works. There's a lot of different opinions about that. I'm sure Krista Wolfco,
Yeah.
she can give you an opinion about it. I think there's a lot of things within that system that people don't use that they could use. It's it's like owning an old car. I have an old '76 Volkswagen camper that my wife loves. It's a pain to drive, but it'll get you from A to B, and I know how to fix it, and it gets the job done. I just bought a new Dodge Ram pickup. It pretty well just drives me around wherever I want to go and takes care of everything for me. It's just so much easier. But the old Volkswagen bus still works fine, gets things done. The bus, you can buy those for a few $1,000s. A new Dodge Ram pickup, $60,000.
We must be paying
Did I
you
need the
pretty
truck?
well.
No.
Woo.
The old system still works. A lot of debate around that on the different sides. A lot of money to redo that. Anytime you go through that process, it's going to be a lot of money. We got a lot of challenges coming up with this budget-wise. The new courthouse, that move our data center. You got to prioritize that and just make it happen.
And
We're here to help, and we're here to make things happen for you. We're not,
I was going to ask about that. By the way, you're worth every penny that we pay you. I'm glad you have a new pickup. You deserve it, actually.
thank you so much.
So the centralization versus decentralization of technical applications, that's kind of, again, what you just described in terms of departments kind of getting different applications, and actually, there might be one that there's enough overlap, it would do the same thing and be more efficient and less costly. Am I putting words in your mouth?
No,
No,
and
okay.
you're starting to describe the cycle, and it's a cycle. More and more, we're noticing more and more departments are wanting to use our classifications. We rewrote the classifications quite a few years back, and the way we rewrote them was the higher level positions. If you wanted to get that classification, you actually had to work for our department, and we did that specifically. So the lower level technical positions in the departments, eventually they're going to get to that level. And so that they couldn't really grow their own IT shops, they would have to come work for us in what we call embedded positions, where the positions still sit out in the departments, but they're managed by us because we know technology and we know what mentoring those positions and people need to get the job done. And it works very, very well. We partner big time with DTD and H3S, the assessor's office,
Okay, the
with
big
Judge
ones.
Brisbane in the courts. It works very well. And there are pockets of technology out there. Sheriff's Office has their own technical staff that we get along extremely well with, and we support each other very well. But more and more people are wanting to centralize and or decentralize and kind of do their own thing because
Yeah,
we're really not part of the county, but we get the paychecks from the county, but we're really not part of the county, so we should have our own technical staff to do our own thing just because, and that really rubs against the spirit of what we're really here to do and make happen for the county.
after being in Salem, centralization is a much better way. You have actually
is.
this county has a far better system than what we had to work with. I don't know if it's changed or not. I know your brother tried to change it, but, yeah, but,
My brother
this
is
is
my
better.
brother.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's a story we won't get into. So, have we been hacked yet? Are we having security issues? I mean, that's the biggest issue.
We have a lot of phishing going on. A lot of emails coming in that really look like they're from the county and they're not. We had one, this last year. It came in and basically looked like it was coming from our finance department and said, you need to go in and change your account information. And we actually had 10 people that did that, which was bad because on a payroll week, their payroll checks would have gone offshore. And they would have lost their money. We're catching more and more of that. We're starting to send out tests, phishing tests to see, and we see it as a training issue for us to make people aware of what's coming in. Nobody eliminates phishing or spam or hacking from coming in. Your best practice is to catch it as quickly as you can and eliminate as much of the damage as you can. We've been extremely successful at doing that. we kind of irritate some departments. I'm always getting emails from different department heads going, I didn't get these emails from my colleagues, and you guys are tightening up the web too tight and loosen it up. And it's very easy to go in and check your emails and your spam filters, see what's in there and pull it out. So we're always tightening and loosening things up, but we do it for our own good to keep those bad guys out. And we've been extremely successful at that so far. But they could do a lot of damage, and they do across the country, and you see it now and then.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. Just a time check, everyone. We have about 14 minutes left for discussion on this topic. And we have Mr. Caton and Mr. Feely, Ms. Lee, and Commissioner Humberston.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your work. It's important, and a person who's been involved with a lot of IT projects over the years, I understand dilemmas you can face along the way.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that you have a new group. It sounds like you're doing systems rationalization, application rationalization to see if there are applications that are across departments that can be utilized, and to try to shrink your application population, so to speak, to try to bring it into a better, an easier way of managing across the enterprise. That's a
Absolutely.
good trend I like to see. Do you have a 5-year technology roadmap, or you mentioned, the cycles you go through with your refreshes, and I'm familiar with that kind of need in an enterprise. And I was just wondering if you have something that you have that could help you share with the budget committee and across the enterprise what your technology roadmap is like, so you can see you got certain network refreshes, server refreshes, technology refreshes that are out over the course of, and of course OS and other application refreshes too, to just kind of set the tone for the enterprise to understand these are coming up and that's what you're saving for, and that you're working on to keep the enterprise up to speed, so to speak, so you're not 10 years behind in certain areas of technology, and you're keeping up to speed.
Absolutely, and thank you for asking that. We are in the process right now of developing our 2 to 3 year plan. We hope to have it done by this time, but definitely by this time next year. What slowed us down was we wanted to integrate a refined and workable MFR process into it, and also refined, we want to revitalize and bring back to life. PGA did an excellent job of it with their service level agreements. That's a component of it, of how we're going to service and provide a service, how we're going to measure it, and what our roadmap is for technology, what the plan is, why we're saving money and doing things the way we are, why we don't do a network refresh right away, how we want to be able to age out the equipment as much as we can, rather than just buying a new car every year. Hope my wife doesn't hear this, but
You can do firmware upgrades with the equipment you have rather than replacing it
exactly.
entirely.
That's the first new truck I've ever owned. But yes, we do have a plan. Dave's working on that with staff. With everything else that's been going on with the turnover in staff, and us looking at the MFR process and noticing that some of the results just aren't measurable. What the heck are these percentages that keep going on and on and on and on and on? So by this time next year, we'll have the full plan implemented, ready to go, and then every year we're going to take a look at that 3 year plan, because it's going to be a rolling plan. And it'll tell you where we're going and why we're going there, and it will help us anticipate all the budget woes and everything that's going on within the county, and keep those hackers out, and be able to bring the county together with technology and run as a better oiled machine. As you know, being in technology, it's really hard to forecast and keep things going. For years we were with one network firm, and they promised they'd be with us forever, and 3 months later they went out of business. So, what do you do? But you just plan for that, and you make things happen, and that's the best you can do. And so, yes, to answer your question, yes, we do.
Working on that.
We weren't able to present it today. Go ahead, David.
Part of your question was also from the budget's perspective. The 3 to 5 year plan is going to be defining our services, hence technology, hence where we're going in support. But we do have a 5 to 8 year plan that we do for capital replacement, because that obviously directly impacts the budget. And these big old large amount of spreadsheets here are part of that process, or we do plan out anything else over $5,000 out for a certain amount of years based on a standard replacement depreciation. We do work with that to be able to determine what our budget needs to be to keep our services at that level.
Yeah.
And then we'll make sure they all tie together. That was part of what we're working on now.
Technology for teaching. Well, I was just saying to Dave, and I try to mention it each time as part of that planning, when we have a program called Technology for Teaching, which deals with our surplus equipment in the county. The only thing I'd like to get to go along with that, and that program is to donate the equipment out to the schools and nonprofits and anybody else that needs it to extend the life of that equipment. What I would like to go along with that whole plan would be a 4-year PC replacement plan where every department pays in each year a percentage, and then at the end of every 4 years, they have brand new PCs sitting on their desk, so their software and applications will run perfectly for them. So that's something we're trying to finish up and work on too.
Okay, great. I have a couple real quick questions. Another one is if the county has enterprise architecture roadmap or document in terms of looking at the enterprise architecturally in terms of creating standards, from the business, technology, applications, data, to give you that framework and that standardization, if you will, and policies that come from that to move the county in a direction that looks at it from a holistic and a systems enterprise view of things or not. And where, if not, that's something to maybe to consider that I know other government agencies are looking at to try to help create enterprise information systems of record to shrink their portfolio of technology, if you will, to a manageable level and a more efficient level going forward to move forward towards. So not sure if that's something you have or not. You can say that's an opportunity versus, something that's not quite in place at this point, but working towards, which is fine. Another question, it's just maybe more of a comment around that rather than ask a question, but what is going to be your involvement with the upcoming projects? You mentioned ERP. They've got the ERP project, assessor project, elections, and the budget process. There's some systems there coming online. Are you going to be, what your involvement with those are going to be? And maybe you can explain and just share that too. I know that's coming up.
Okay.
Be quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a reminder that we have about 6 minutes left for
Okay.
this session.
Yeah, so
and
overall
four other-
county technology architecture plan, we are working towards that. Trying to become more centralized and more in connection with all the different departments. Not all the departments share with us what their technology plans are. I think that's one of the things that really needs to happen. It's one thing we're working more and more towards and trying to get to. And I think we're starting to get there. So we'll see how that evolves. The other question was?
Just around the upcoming projects that we've.
Oh,
got,
yes, all those
you know,
projects.
all those that we have a portfolio of technology
Yeah,
projects. That you
all
may
those
be
all
involved
those projects that you mentioned, we are in partnership and working with those departments on those projects. We are becoming more and more involved with technology and the technology around those and integrating those together. So yes, those things are happening for us.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Feely?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff actually asked most of my questions, but I just wanted to reiterate the importance of your involvement, especially in the ERP system as it moves forward. I think that's critically important, as well as the other automated systems that we've heard about this week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lee?
Yes, in the same way that you're integrating and centralizing within the county, how do you see this working in the future as other cities like Sandy who have FiberNet want to coordinate in an overall plan? Have you built that into some of your future planning?
With integrating cities' technology within the county's technology.
Are you looking at a broader plan where there would be some integration and coordination that would occur as a result?
We haven't specifically, we used to, like Lake Oswego, they used to be on our finance system. and stuff like that. They went off on their own. We haven't really reached out to all the cities for that type of partnership yet with those types of applications. Something we need to do as we go through the process and see what they're doing, see if there's services maybe we could offer to them or we could share with the cities as we continue on this. Certainly something that needs to be talked about in our long-range technology plan. It's just something that we haven't done just quite yet. We haven't had a lot of interest from the other entities coming to us, asking us about, what do we do and how can we partner with that? But it is something that we need to take the initiative to outreach and go to them and say, what are you doing and how can we do this? Can we do it better together? Or maybe you might want to tack on to some of our services.
Right, I think there would be some benefits in that in the future.
Absolutely, I
Thank you.
agree. You're welcome.
Economy of scale type thing. Commissioner Humberston and then Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you. I wanted to just point out for the public that may not have seen this or not known this, but the fact that you saved $1,300,000 this last year in taxpayer funds because of CBX, and you're anticipating $1,500,000 next year as your goal.
That's correct.
There's not a lot of areas where we're able to show to the general public that we actually save them money with services that we provide, and this is one of them. The fact that you've also expanded CBX outreach as much as you have and have been able to do that with no debt gives me great confidence in the business plan that I know you're going to be bringing forward within the next 30 days. As most of us sitting up here are generalists, we're not experts in finance, we're not experts in accounting or budgeting or road maintenance or technology or much of any of the other things that you folks are. I have a lot of confidence in the professional expertise that you bring to the table, both in your department and in other departments, that helps us make good policy decisions. So I think the public needs to know that there's that kind of savings going on as a direct result of your efforts, and I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bernard and Ms. Lee, did you? Yeah, thank you. Could someone put Mr. Feely's card down?
So, we invest a lot of money in your department, as we did in data storage, in our building. Is that Silver Oaks? Is that called Silver Oaks? Where we store our records? Okay.
Yes, they're over there.
So, it makes perfect sense to me that we give you the power, or you and a committee, the power to determine whether or not somebody can buy software. And we ought to enforce that policy, just like we should enforce records storage over in our records facility. I know that this first time I've heard some groups actually doing that, moving their records department over there. So one thing, I'd love to see a policy come before the commission to make that determination. The same with storage of records. The other thing is that an opportunity to do utility billing. West, for example, could do utility billing for various cities and stuff, but sometimes they don't want us to know how much extra they charge over what we charge. But we can do that, and that's the kind of partnership we could do is various utility billing. So anyway, you do great work. I look forward to, like Ken, the business plan in the near future. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions from the panel today. I appreciate all that. So thank you so much. Thank you, Dave and Dave.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it, and carry on. You're doing a great job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
By the way, 3 Daves and a Duke.
Oh, is
Dave's
that
in the
it?
Duke, yes.